Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swiz, here to answer your questions for round 6. As always, continue to support us on all our social media platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, Soundcloud, and contact us via Twitter, Supercoach Insider 100 or Swiz26 for me. And thank you to Splash Vodka for all their ongoing support of this podcast. Now, if you haven't already, I've put out my dual position video early this week, especially for those who want to know how to get Zeeble or Sheasel into the defense without costing you a trade. So check that one out. Ben and Chris have put their videos up. Mine will come up for my team video either tonight or tomorrow morning once teams have come out. So check that out when it comes out. So far, I've only made the one trade, as you can see there, is Roberts, but we will talk more about that tomorrow. But thank you to all the questions that have been sent in. There has been quite a few, so we'll go through them now, and we'll kick off with Tim Ward. Any rookies this week? No, that's the obvious question. So we'll start off with Dylan Williams, 123k forward from Port Adelaide. So far, I've scored 64 and 51, minus 43 break even. So definitely the one on the horizon that people should be looking at. The good thing about him is, now, depending on how many weeks you potentially wanting to keep him, if it's just a sort of cash grab, move him out, or if he becomes somebody that stays in your team a little bit longer, because he's playing in defence for Port Adelaide, he will pick up dual position status come the next time, so after round 11 leading to the bye. So he might be one as a slow burn that we could keep for a little bit longer. That becomes handy as a loophole option later on with Zeeble or Sheasel if we still have them in our sides. But as if a short cash grab, while they do have Port Adelaide this week. Now, how many points does he actually get from defence? He looks fairly solid to go sort of 60s. So the way you'll work that out for just even cash this week is, so he's got a minus break even of 43, and now let's just say he's going to go 60 this week. That's 60 plus the minus 43 is 103. Divide that by 20, which is 5, and it works out to be roughly 9k for every 20 points. So 5 times 9, 45k is roughly what we're looking at him to go up this week. So yeah, it'll be a small cash grab there. Hopefully he can make at least 100k. You really hope there's a spike in there at one point, maybe a 70 or an 80. But do I think he's got that in there? Probably not. Job security is not too bad at that, but there's always that worry that if a couple bad performances or one bad performance from him, he could find himself out of the side. But they've definitely liked what they've seen from him so far. Playing his role, Port Adelaide won on the weekend again, so while they're winning, you think there's less likely the team's going to change. So he's the first one. The second is Matty Roberts, so he's the one I've already brought in, 129k, played the first 3 games as sub, has already picked up the dual position, so he's a forward mid, 93 on the weekend, playing more that half-forward wing role, which is really good to see. Finally got that opportunity out there, and even with that break-even of 49 last week, so he's gone up from cash, I think he was maybe 110 last week, so he's the obvious one with the right role. Swans are really got a lot of injuries at the moment, so why that's the case, there definitely seems to be a role for him. The worry is, what's the chances he goes back to being the sub? The hope is now that he's shown what he can do with a full game that they'll back him in. So he's, for me, I think the best option. And then the third one's Matt Johnson from Fremantle. Again, has been a sub person for the first few rounds. Got the opportunity, scored 67. However, that was boosted because of a late goal in a close match, so not one I'm as keen on. 139k for him. I know he was in a lot of teams mid-year, so if I was looking at him, Williams and Roberts are definitely the 2 rookies you'd be looking at. Funny that the best players with break-evens this week are not necessarily the cheap ones, but one is Chase Jones, which I know a lot of people are considering. 308k defender, went 116 last week, break-even of minus 31. Now, the big thing that's changed for him, the first week he was a sub and then came on and kind of played a half-back role with a little bit of time up ground. Last 2 weeks he's moved as a pure wingman. And on the weekend looked fantastic in that role. We would have loved a perfect world to have sort of more data like the preseason game leading into round 1 and 2. So that's something that's kind of annoying for us as fans because, you're kind of taking a bit of a punt that doesn't change. They do have the Hawks this week, so potentially could score really well again. At 308k, even say a Liam Jones who went really well last week, or even a McKenna, if you wanted to say, look at moving him on. Jones, it looks like he should make at least 100k over the next couple of weeks, but potentially if he continues to score between 80 and 100, becomes sort of like a Will Day situation where he could become like a D5, D6 sort of keeper, or somebody who it might be a luxury trade later in the season. So somebody that if I can manage it, happy to take the risk on, because I think there's definitely improvement there, and definitely could keep that role. Now, how many points could he potentially keep scoring? That's always a hard one to predict. He was also a top 10 draft pick, so finally we might see the best of him. I think he was part of that super draft as well, so hopefully, he, for those who are taking the chance on him, actually gets some good rewards there. And the other one's Radigalia, so well done for those who have him. He's gone back-to-back 88s, break even of 26 now, the ruck forward, now 259k, so he's netted you 80k since the start. I wouldn't probably be looking at trading him in, but he looked awesome in that first quarter last week. I think he took 6 or 7 intercept marks. So, well done to those guys, and you're going to probably see at least another sort of 60 to maybe even up to 100k out of him too. So he's going to become one of the better cash cows. So thank you for that. Luke has said, how many rookies on field? So at the moment, I'm looking at 7. And now I'm trying to bring in a premium because I've got 360k, but with Tom Green still sitting there, naturally a rookie's going to have to cover him. That's unless I kind of go the mid-price strategy, and there's a little bit of talk. I've been talking with, say, Supercoach Mum about this, Jones, and the other one with a really nice break-even is Tom Hawkins. I think it's -6. Now, the problem is Hawkins with his age, how long until he gets rested, and he relies on goals and the marks, but him and Jeremy Cameron are just dominating that forward line for Geelong. They need to keep winning because of their slow start to the season. He has the potential to make a very quick 100k by scoring points, especially Swans with no backline this week. I think then they got the Bombers, the Crows, even the Tigers. So Hawkins could definitely go on a run of 100. I would prefer Jeremy Cameron. The only difference is Jeremy Cameron's break-even's 52 and about 120k cheap, dearer. But it's definitely something which I could see some people jumping on. And potentially Hawkins could get to 520, 530 and even potentially be that sort of F6 option for you. So the risk and reward versus mid prices of me bringing maybe a Took and a Roberts. And there's something I'm actually a little bit undecided still on. It's usually the game of going, okay, we just bring in the premium guys and that, but if there's potentially 2 guys who are, I can get for the same price, who are going to go up in value and still could potentially be scoring 90s, that points on field is sort of everything. If that means taking a couple of these rookies off who are up and down each week, it's something, a bit of food for thought. Just have to then be mindful that might cost me 2 trades later on. So, something I'm going to be thinking about most of today while I'm driving around the Melbourne Metro network. So we've got Del Cunningham who's gone, how much is a half-decent team right now worth? So I'm ranked 3,141 and my value is 11,664,500. Chris is ranked 1,002 and his value is 11,834,300. So that's kind of give you a rough idea for those who are just outside the top 1,000. And then I guess the ones probably inside the top 1,000 would be getting close to that 12 million mark. So hopefully that helps with that. And how much in the bank? And there's no right or wrong answer for that. At the moment it's 360, but some people are looking maybe double downing this week. So you would hope there you'd have at least 400,000, so you go double up the following week. Some people will have exactly, I think talking to last year's winner JP, he's got exactly $0 in the bank after he's done his trades this week. So there's no right or wrong. It's just if you've got no money in the bank, you would have hoped you've just done upgrades, and if you've got lots of money, you'd hope you've just gone double down to the potential of looking at putting it up. Monica asked, how much am I going to the footy this weekend? Well, yes, of course, Richmond, Melbourne, and also going to Anzac Day. Collingwood Essence should be absolutely awesome this year. Just a shame Merritt's not playing, because that's just going to, take away, I think, from what could have been an absolute classic clash. So Paul Leach has asked, if you didn't get Dawson, would you trade Setterfield or Ashcroft to him? Dawson with a break-even of 54. If you did have Setters or Ashcroft, as much as I'd prefer to keep them in the side, yes, I'd do that, just because Dawson's going to continue to go up in price, unless, he gets the tag, but there's potential there where they might just let him roam free again. If you wait, you're potentially looking at round 15, because the Crows have their bye in round 14, so it's a long time to wait without Dawson, because if he was to potentially go, let's just say 110 this week, which has been a bit conservative on that bracket 52, so we go, it's roughly up 27k. You're now looking at a player who's over 680, and outside, like, I broke the bank 2 weeks ago getting Setterfield out, but then I did have cash to get Oliver in. Are you really doing that for a second time? And there's potential, if he goes big again, his break even, could still stay similar, and could be looking at going easily over 700k. So yeah, there's no chance you're going to probably be getting him in there when you've got other players like Neil and Took that others are looking at. So I think it's maybe the last chance, or you just bypass him and say, okay, that's one I've missed. Can I look at value elsewhere? And there are some defenders there with value, so that's something we'll cover in a moment. But yeah, maybe it's just one you leave through the keeper and go. And Ashcroft still does have some money to make. It's been a little bit underwhelming of that, but he's still averaging 77.4. So he's still going up, doing his thing. Setterfield without Merritt this week, potentially looking at another 100-point game, and playing your role for him. Okay, that's around his break even now, but you've got a guy there that's cost you 360, who's averaging 100. Yeah, in a perfect world, as I said, I would have preferred to have him in the team. It was going to be either him or Hopper. I had to go out for Clary. Did I really need to probably chase Clary and that? Well, I was hoping that as much as I want the Tigers to beat the D's this week, if they're not, I hope Clary does go 200 to repay that faith. But if he doesn't, well, that's probably been a bit of a bust of a trade. Sean's asked, can we get another 20 trades like that, mate? And that probably comes into Daryl's question. When does Supercoach open 2024? If you're finding yourself ranked a lot down, like I know JP said it the other day, I think he was about 15,000 after round 6 last year. I know I was 13,500 coming in the buys. JP obviously won. I still finished top 500. So even if you're ranked outside, even up to like sort of 20,000 plus, there's still plenty of time, and I think somebody said the other day there was barely any points between sort of 5,000 and 50,000 anyway. It might even be like 500 points or something. Like, we're talking like round 1 captain's week, and I go lead and Chris goes wits, and it's 90 points, and that's the difference between me and him there. So I think actually that puts me ahead of him. So you could get it on a roll of a couple good captains weeks and massively move up your ranking. So it's not done with yet. You've also got leagues to play for, or even if you consider targeting for one of the bye rounds, for example, one of the weeks where you try to win the 1,000k for the round. Like, there's always something to play for. So some people try to do that, and if you do pull that off, you're $1,000 richer than most of us out of it. So there's different things you can probably set your Supercoach season out for, and that, so don't be too disheartened. It only needs to take 1 or 2 really good trades, and it might be Chase Jones this year. It could be the Harry Himmelberg of last year, for example, or have some fun and play around with maybe some mid prices. Go get Hawkins and a lot of Geelong players, and I hope that they continue to march on their merry way. Adrian's asked, do we double downgrade this week? Don't have to, but if you want Williams and Roberts, then obviously yes. Depends if you want to use that boost on top of that, and that's what I'm debating on, because I've obviously already used a couple of boosts there, and do I really want to use another one to get in Williams? So that's the thought there. He's asked about thoughts on Dangerfield, 500k, 3-week average of 113, so he's going very well at the moment. The only problem with that is, it's danger. Does he get rested? Does he have a couple of slower games and stuff? So I don't think he's an option as a keeper going forward. But maybe for those people who are ranked further up, like, other people are looking at Neil, or, can you save that 130k? Maybe take the risk on danger, put that money into upgrading a rookie to Hawkins, and if Geelong go bang, bang, bang the next 3 weeks, or you're the ones laughing. And if you are further back, they're the risks that you take. And does it really matter? Like, if you're ranked 50,000 and it doesn't pull off, well, who cares? Like, if you're ranked 70,000, 80,000 after that, but if that comes off for you and you may, move up into the top 10,000, well, fantastic. So I don't mind, taking the risk there if you're further back in rankings. Also ask about Darcy McPherson. Outside of his 98 against Geelong, which he had a really good role that day playing in the back pocket, but I find him a Mr. Fix-It guy. He's been steadily going in the 70s, and that's where he's priced at. So I'd say that's a no for that one. Nice little draft smoky if you've picked him up there. Wayne Targ asked, what is the better value, going to Uber premiums like your Neils, Lairds and Tukes, or a range of players? And that's where you talk about your Joneses, your Hawkins, your Dangers, those sort of left field options. And there's no right or wrong answer to that. Most people will be probably playing pretty solid and looking at Neil or Tuke, and I'm definitely considering Tuke. Good draw coming up, especially against North this week. Could be anything. But at the same time, is that just, we always say that, and then do they get a lockdown roll or something, happens, and it's, the cheaper players are, better. But we saw North last week, they didn't tag. They let Neil do whatever he wants, and that's why I'm a lot more keen on Tuke. The only problem is if I don't use 3 trades, I've got to do Chandler. I don't really want to trade Chandler with Melbourne's draw coming up. Yeah, he's break even. Is starting to get up there, about 47, but we've seen him score over that every week. So if in a perfect world I can trade Oscar Baker and maybe look at somebody else to bring in, maybe Williams, it's just a question, do I want to boost for that, or is it, do I take the risk, say, on a Tom Green, for example? And as much as he's averaging really well and I don't really want to trade him, Giants have a tough draw coming up. Maybe that's where I go down to Chase Jones and take the cash and then use that cash next week to try to get Neil in. Supercoach battlers, Chase Jones scoring potential, move Setterfield in and bank the 100k. Yeah, like, I don't mind this. As much as I think Setterfield goes really well this week because naturally Zach Merritt is out. I think Jones, again for the Hawks, that beautiful break even that he has, and can Jones match Setterfield with points? Well, there is potential there. The wing roll is always up and down. We've seen that. We've talked about Finn Callahan. And every wing, when it depends if they are playing through that wing, and we've seen that with the Giants. One wing, they either go the attacking side, next quarter they go the defensive side, and it all swaps. The Crows, you hope that they keep going through Jones. So there is risk there. With Setterfield, he's playing guts, and he's probably Essendon's best midfielder at the moment. He just looks fantastic out there. Outside of probably getting that bit of an injury, and he's come through that. So, did an awesome job on Oliver last week, plus still found the ball. So, in a perfect world, I'd want to keep him. But, yeah, what can you do with that 100k? If that 100k then helps you get a player up to another, premium, then and that's what I always say, what does that 100k do for you? Even if it helps you the following week to do something, yeah, maybe that it's not a bad move because obviously Jones is going to go up for money. But in a perfect world, I would want to keep Setterfield and try to get Jones another way. But that is an interesting question. And Jones' scoring potential, like if he's playing wing, he should still go 80. It just, we're hoping it's more closer to that 100. Depends on how Adelaide perform. They should beat the Hawks this week. Then what happens after that when they get their tougher games? And that's the bit of the issue there. But yeah, I do like that role where he's playing. I like the fact that he's playing more wing now than where he was playing. But so it looks like he does have a role locked down. But yeah, the wing role can be so up and down, and that's the problem. If it's a case he only starts getting 80s, then it's going to be a very quick move and cash out, and we just take the money and then move him up to someone else. But if he's going, 95 plus, then yeah, as a defender in Supercoach, that's fantastic. And then probably next round 11, he picks up defensive midfielder. So that's something to think about. Then we've got Corey from the Break Evens. Good if you haven't listened to their pod. Get on. What impact will Hall have on Sheasel and Zeeble? Well, obviously they'll have an impact when he plays, but then I'm just thinking Aaron Hall just breaks down again and gets injured. Like I should probably be more worried about it because we know a Hall will just seagull the ball, something chronic, but his body just lets him down so much. It might be like a 2 or 3 weeks where, yeah, they might flatten out to like maybe an 80, 85. But and then if North are getting absolutely pantsed, there's potential that maybe it's, even with Luke McDonald, they keep all going 95 plus because they're just going to see so much ball. The way they set up last week, and it looks like Clarko's trying to implement this zoning defence. It's going to take many weeks for them to get their head around it, so potentially going to be a few blowouts, and means if you've got teams kicking as many points as Brisbane did on the weekend, they might all be great options. Jeffrey Head, Jay-Z versus Lloyd. So Jay-Z's 90k cheaper, dual position. We've been big on Jay-Z the entire time, but Lloyd, fantastic. Outside the Melbourne game, he's had 24 touches in every match. His average is 106, so it's 6 points better than Z-Ball. It's something that you could seriously consider. Break even of 70, lowest of 93 this year. Playing the Cats, he's probably their only real, him and Blakely are the only proper defenders. They probably get beaten fairly comfortably this week, but Lloyd, there's potential for the kickouts, or if not, the cheap kick into the back pocket. I've really warmed to Lloyd. He probably burnt a few people last year, but at the same time, just sort of the way the Swans are playing, it has to be considered, and probably needs to be this week, maybe next week. 533k. Yeah, I think he's a fairly good option. Which one I would choose out of the two? I'm still bigger on Jay-Z because I think the way North are playing, the cheaper price, and the fact that you've got the option to put him in the forward or the defence. But yeah, I think Lloyd does have to be considered, and this is one which will come in because Coco and Tom have. Coco's asked Cogs or Sinclair, and Tom's asked Parrish or Sinclair. So we'll cover that first. So Cogs break even still of 102, 485. Sinclair 546 break even of 113, and Parrish 557, 116. Now, the thing with sort of Cogs, it's Green's out, Sinclair steals back, so does that move him back to the defensive role, and Parrish with Merritt out. So everyone's thinking short term, all three should score pretty well, should get their break even this week. However, if they don't, have these three players even bottomed out yet? Now, I would think all three of them probably get close to their break even, maybe not Sinclair as much. Saints do have their next 3 games at Marvel, so that does help him under the roof there. So I think I wouldn't probably jump on Sinclair yet. I'd just wait and see how the role goes with still back. Cogs, yeah, I can see that, but they do have Brisbane, Sydney, Collingwood, St Kilda, and Geelong coming up. It's a really tough draw for the Giants, and that's where kind of the Tom Green thing is do I kind of move him now as much as I don't want to? So if I had to choose between the two, it's Cogs, but we'll get into some options in a second elsewhere that you may have not thought of. And the same with Parrish versus Sinclair for Tom. I'd probably lean to Parrish, but it is Pies, Geelong, Port Adelaide, Brisbane coming up. It's a tough draw as well, so I think they're much of a muchness. Maybe they're kind of the same price. Maybe it is Parrish slightly, but with Setterfield coming in, he doesn't have the monopoly that he did have previously. So Jeremy Cameron break even of 52, 565k. You got Noah Anderson, who's gone 134 and 109 the last 2 weeks, but does have North, Richmond, then Melbourne, and then West Coast coming up. Break even of 62. You got Caleb Sarong, 573k, break even 82. Last 3 average of 130. Jake Lloyd that we've just talked about, and Liam Baker 522, break even of 106, but 4-game average of 114. So there's 5 options just there that you might have not considered about. Now, we all think Canelio and Sinclair are more likely to be top sort of 6 to 8 in their position. Jeremy Cameron and Lloyd are definitely 2 to consider for that. Even Liam Baker, because he's got the defensive forward. So maybe consider them. Have a bit of research through those guys and see if they fit better into your team structure than maybe what Parrish or Sinclair or Cogs do. And you can always hold off for maybe another week on those boys. But yeah, if you think points on field and they're going to smash it, well, yeah, back yourself in. But I'm not as convinced on... I kind of want to see another week, especially Cogs. I kind of wanted to see 2 weeks just to see how they go up against the top teams. So I'm thinking he could potentially even get cheaper because he can put in the 60 or 50 game. That's not out of the realm. So could he even get to 450? So that's kind of what I've been thinking about with that. We've got Harrison Perkins. Trade Ridley or Green. So I think it probably depends on what cover you've got in each position. Ridley's been a little bit underwhelming, but he's still going 90s. He's still serviceable. And with that draw we just talked about, they're going to see the Bombers are performing really well. I always say that, when the Bombers are going to sort of come down, but maybe they don't. So do they, does he still go 90? Can he bump up to 100 with that sort of fixture, the potential there? Tom Green's, he is averaging still very well, like the 107, one of the better midfield options at the moment. It's only a 1 week and it's only suspension, so it probably freshens him up. So I don't really want to move him. But yeah, so in a perfect world, if you can cover, I think if you had to, and that's one that's your only options to trade, I think you probably do keep Ridley, just because naturally Green is missing this week, and you've got that points on field. But then you've got the option, if you've got somebody who's playing like Baker, for example, on the Friday night, if he was able to score, say 70, well, then what are you losing for holding Green anyway? It's only like 30 points on field potentially. So maybe it's easier there to hold him. And then it also depends because of the extra cash too. So Ridley is 40, 50k cheaper than Green. So does that cash do anything for you? And if it doesn't, like if you've got, say, Baker there, or maybe a Johnson or somebody who's playing before Green's game, to have a look at their score, put them on the emergency. If they score well, then hold Green and trade Ridley. And if that allows you to do the trade that you're looking to do. Corey's gone. Should I trade Sard? Brought him in for Doc last week over Stewart, and I've heard a couple of stories of this. People trade out Stewart to Doc and then Doc into Sard. It's just brutal. It's a bit like the ruck line where people went Gawn to Cameron, and then into a third ruck. So absolutely brutal. You'd hope it's only a 1, maybe a 2 at worst. It depends on your cover. A lot of people maybe don't have that cover in the back line. If you do, hold him. If you don't, maybe that's where you go the Chase Jones. Bank the 270k, and then have a look at your options in 2 or 3 weeks after Jones has made an extra 100k. So that might be a potential move there. And last one is from Matt. He's asked me about Lear. So he's 451k, break even 45. Had a 44 against Collingwood, had an absolute mare that day, but so did Port Adelaide. But outside of that, he's got 96, 110, 111, 105 for a 105 average. Port do have West Coast this week. We saw what Stewart did against the Eagles. And he's actually, we talked about, depending on where you rank, or if you want to sort of go sort of pods or disperse your cash, these could be these left field options that could be better. So, like hypothetically, if I hadn't brought in Olive that week, I went somebody cheaper, or even when I didn't bring in English, I went Grundy. So I could have hypothetically had maybe an extra 250k in the bank. Like if that 250k, if I could have upgraded to get, say, an Lear and maybe a Hawkins or stuff like that, and have rookies off the field, well, there's potential these guys could make just as much cash as some of these rookies we've got. The rookies will always make more if they're out there and playing, but the job security and the sub potential is really being a killer. We saw that with Cam McKenzie last week. Here's a rookie that should get CBAs, bang, his sub, cash gen gone, and see you later kind of situation. So it's something to really think about, that maybe some of these mid-prices, and that's what you look at all the top teams, and they've all got Will Day, and they had, I'm trying to think who they had missing last week. There was a player that missed, but a few had Rampy as well. So they've been going some of these mid-prices, and it helped us sort of catch up on some of them last week because they were missing, and the premiums did well. But there was still a couple of teams that scored, I think the Best Coast Eagles might still scored 24.60. So some of these top teams have still got, cheaper players who are really performing. So maybe that is the left field option. You put in your Alirs and your Lloyds and Hawkins and Chase Jones, and hopefully those rookies, for you guys get subbed off, only score a 20 or a 30, or they get dropped. And you guys are laughing with guys who are scoring. You're sort of 90 points still making cash. And if you're like in a Alirs position going 105, well, perfect. He potentially becomes a keeper for you at 450. Like, much better than, say, maybe spending up for Dawson, who's 650. Yeah, he's going the extra 20 points a game, 24 points a game. But, that extra 200k, what does that do for you? Does that then get one of these other guys up to somebody else? And then that takes another rookie off field. So, there's no right or wrong answer, but it all comes down to a sort of, you find the higher end players do usually play a bit more safer, and those who, are outside, you guys take the risks, and that's how you close the gap. And if you don't, well, who cares? Unless you're playing for leagues, and those leagues have cash involved, and then that probably does change your thinking there. So it all depends on your individual situation. So yeah, hopefully that answers some questions. I'll be back to talk about the ins and outs. Hopefully we don't have too much carnage tonight. No Thursday night games, so that's a bit of a change. And Anzac weekend, so should be a beautiful one for footy. And then obviously remember our fallen servicemen there, and get out and definitely get your poppy, donate some money to that. It's a great cause. And hopefully it should be a lovely weekend, and we'll talk soon. Bye.